Here's something nobody tells you when you start tracking your food. It feels exactly like doing your taxes for the first time. Confusing, annoying, and honestly, way too much work for what sometimes feels like zero payoff. But what if that feeling isn't a sign that you're bad at this? What if it's just proof that you're on a beginning level and that the level up is closer than you think? I'm Debbie. I'm an online personal trainer, and I spend my time helping real folks get strong for real life. Welcome back to Strength for the Journey. Okay, so I want to start today with a training update because I always want you to know that I'm right here in it with you. I'm not talking to you from some place where I have it all figured out. Far from it. I'm in the messy middle of my own journey, just like you might be in yours. So here's where I'm at. We are headed into May. And if you are an educator or a parent of a school age kid, you already know what this time of year feels like. It has a very specific energy. There's this combination of exhaustion and relief happening at the same time. The finish line is in sight, but you still have to run the last mile to get there. Testing, events, field trips, end of the year, everything. The calendar is full and your tank is probably running low. For me, this time of year has always been a real test of my consistency. And what I've learned over time is that consistency in a busy season doesn't look the same as consistency in a calm season. And that's okay. It's supposed to look different. Here's what it has looked like for me lately. I have been shortening my workouts. I've gone from 45 to 60-minute sessions down to just 20 or 30 minutes. I've cut the number of exercises I'm doing, and instead of doing 3 sets of everything, I'm doing 2. But I make sure to go heavier and push harder in those sets. Now, if you had told me a few years ago that shorter workouts would make me feel stronger, I probably would have rolled my eyes at you. Because the way fitness is sold to most of us is more, more, more. More time, more volume, more sweat, longer sessions equal better results, right? But here is what I've actually experienced. When I walk into this garage gym with 25 minutes and a plan, I'm more likely to get in a good workout than if I had tried to force myself into a 60-minute session. The shorter sessions allow me to actually start. I focus on intensity, and intensity, it turns out, is the actual driver of progress, not duration. I want to sit with that for a second because I think it matters for where a lot of you are right now. If you are telling yourself that you can't be consistent this time of year because you don't have a full hour to give, I want you to hear this. You do not need a full hour. You need a plan and 20 minutes of actually going hard at it. That's it. And this connects directly to what I want to talk about today because it's all part of the same idea. The idea of leveling up your skills so that what used to feel impossible starts to feel not just possible, but easy. So let me tell you a story about my tax bill. When I first started this coaching business, I treated it just like a little side project, which honestly is probably how it felt to me at the time. I was and still am an educator first, and the coaching just felt like something fun that I did on the side. Actually, it is something I never dreamed would turn into an actual business. So I kept all the things mixed together. Business income went into my personal checking account. Business expenses went onto my personal credit card. It was all just jumbled together in one pile. And the reason I hadn't set up a dedicated business checking account or gotten an EIN, which is basically a tax ID number for your business, it was kind of a little bit embarrassing when I say it out loud, but it's connected to my Amazon points. I'm serious. I didn't want to switch to a business credit card because I was earning Amazon points on my personal card. And I felt like I didn't want to give those up, the Amazon points. This was the thing. I mean, that and it all felt complicated to my brain. But actually, by keeping things combined, I was creating an absolute mess for myself at tax time. No clean records, business expenses buried in personal spending, no clear picture of what the business was actually doing. And when this tax season came around, I got a bill that was a real wake up call. Not because it was a surprise, I knew things were disorganized, but seeing it in black and white, that was hard to ignore. So here's what finally happened. I set up the dedicated checking account. I have now dedicated one card as the business credit card. I opened an LLC and got the EIN. I have started to actually take the business seriously enough to give it its own systems. And you know what happened? Everything that had felt so complicated when someone first told me I should do it, all of a sudden it seemed really easy, almost overnight. Things that I had been avoiding because they seemed like so much work turned out to take about 20 minutes to set up. The tracking that felt overwhelming has now become automatic. I realized that the next time I sit down to prepare for taxes, it will be so much easier. The thing that felt super complicated 3 years ago feels so simple now that I feel silly that I didn't do it sooner. And I want you to really hear what happened there. I wasn't avoiding the systems because I was disorganized or bad at business. I was avoiding them because I was on the lower level. I didn't yet believe that my business was real enough to deserve those systems. I was holding on to Amazon points instead of building something that actually worked because operating at that lower level felt safer than committing to the next one. The things that felt super complicated when I was on that lower level turned out to be really quite easy once I got there. And they made everything else easier too. That is a real shift. And it applies to every single area of your life where you're currently sitting at a lower level, wondering why the thing feels so hard. Let's bring this back to your fitness. I want you to think about the last time you tried to track your food, or the last time you tried to build a consistent workout routine, or the last time you tried to hit a protein goal, or learn how to lift heavy, or even figure out why the scale wasn't moving the way you expected it to. How did that feel? For most people, the answer is some version of overwhelming. Too many moving parts, too much information, too many things to track or remember or calculate. And at some point, the effort stopped feeling worth it and they just stopped doing it. I want to offer you a completely different way of looking at that experience. You were not failing, you were on a lower level. And those two things, they're not the same. Calorie tracking feels complicated at first because your brain has to do new work. It doesn't have the reps yet. It doesn't have the shortcuts. You're looking up every single food, trying to remember to log things, second guessing portion sizes, feeling like you're spending more time in your phone app than you are actually living your life. That is the lower level experience of a skill that just hasn't been practiced enough yet. But here's what I know from coaching people through this. Somewhere around week 3 or 4, something starts to shift. The foods you eat regularly, you already know what they are in the app. Portion sizes start to feel a little more intuitive. The logging gets faster. And then one day you realize you did it almost without thinking. The skill has started to compound. Calorie tracking isn't a life sentence. It's a skill. And like every skill, it gets easier every single time you do it. The same thing is true for lifting. When someone starts lifting weights for the first time or comes back to it after a long break, everything can feel awkward. The form might not feel natural. The weights feel either too heavy or too light, and it's hard to know which. There's a lot of trial and error, and it can feel discouraging. But if you stay in it, the skill will build. Your body learns the movements. Your brain stops having to think so hard about each rep. You start to feel the difference between a weight that's challenging and a weight that's actually too heavy. That's knowledge you can only get from reps. It's a skill that only comes from time. And then there's the scale. I have to talk about the scale because I think the scale is where more people abandon their journey than anywhere else. The scale does not move in a straight line. I want you to hear that clearly. It never has, and it never will. It fluctuates based on water, hormones, sleep, sodium, a million different things. And it never moves as fast as we want it to, especially when we are making real and genuinely challenging sacrifices to try to make it move. That combination, the nonlinear movement, can you tell I've been hanging out with math people? And the slower than expected pace is what causes people to decide that what they're doing isn't working. So they stop and then they start over and then the cycle repeats. It takes longer than people want it to, which is exactly why they tend to give up too soon, right before the level up. The people who push through that messy middle are not superhuman. They don't have more willpower than you do. They're not more disciplined. They just decided to stay at the level they were on long enough for the skill to build. And the skill built. And then the next level opened up. That's it. That's the whole secret. Now, I want to speak directly to the educators and the parents listening right now because I think this season has a specific relevance to what we've been talking about. You're in countdown mode. I know because I am too. The school year is winding down, and there's a very real temptation to just put everything on hold until summer. I'll start when school's out. I'll have more time. I'll have more bandwidth. I'll be less tired. And I understand that completely. And those things are probably true. I've probably said every single version of that sentence to myself at some point. But here's what I've watched happen year after year for myself and for the people I coach. Summer arrives, and the structure of the school year disappears with it. And without the routine of the school day to anchor things, the whole I'll be healthier this summer plan, it kind of evaporates. Not because you're lazy, not because you don't want it, but because you walked into summer without the skills already in place. And building skills from zero in an unstructured environment, it's actually harder than building them during the school year when you at least have some anchors in your day. So here's the reframe I want to offer you. What if the next few weeks, these last weeks of the school year, are actually the best possible time to start building the skill? Not the full routine, not the perfect plan, just the skill. Maybe one tracking habit, one workout habit, something small and consistent that you can carry into summer already in place. Because here's what I know. A flexible foundation is so much easier to maintain than it is to build from scratch. If you walk into June with 4 weeks of a habit already compounding, summer doesn't knock you off track. You bend with it. You have the beach day, you take the camping trip, and you come back from it still in the game instead of feeling like you have to start over. That's what I help people build in my one-on-one coaching. Not a rigid plan that shatters the second life gets real, a flexible foundation that bends without breaking. And right now, for the month of May only, I'm offering 25% off my 3-month coaching package because I genuinely believe that 3 months is the minimum for those skills, real skills, to take root. 1 month is just a sprint. 3 months is where the level up actually happens. If you want to apply, the link is in the show notes. I would love to hear from you. So here's what I want to leave you with today. If something in your health journey feels too complicated right now, I want you to resist the urge to read that as a sign that it's just not for you. It might just mean that you're on that lower level, and being on a lower level, it's not a failure. It's a starting point. Stay at your level. Go hard at your level, because the only way to get to the next one is to stop looking up at it and start doing the work right where you are. I promise you the level up is coming if you don't quit. Keep showing up and building your strength for the journey. I'll catch you in the next one.